Feeling a little unsettled and stressed with the way things are in our world? Experience the peace of Jesus with Finding Peace, our 5-day devotional. Visit purposely.com to sign up. Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Did you do it? Did you survive Maycember? How's it going as the summer is rolling out? I tell you, this spring into summer has been one of the busier ones we've ever experienced. Our twins graduated from high school, and between their birthdays and graduation and all the family coming in and all the things that went down as part of that, along with all the other stuff that you're probably dealing with too, from proms to final exams to getting kids ready to go into the next semester in the fall, all that stuff. Wow. Whew. So here we are in the thick of summer. Hopefully you're getting a chance to take a breath. I know that I am very much enjoying taking a chance to get a breath. And I tell you what, I want to set myself up for success when the fall rolls around and everything starts kicking off again. And as part of that, I had a chance to sit down with my producer, Rebecca, who's amazing. And we talked about what do we want our summer series to be this year? And she came up with this idea that completely resonates with me. So here it is, drum roll. We're calling this the Summer 25 Simplify series. I love it because I so need it. We're going to take a little tour around some of your top favorite episodes we've had that have to do with creating more peace in your life, creating a greater simplicity. I think that at the end of this series, you're going to feel much more prepared and encouraged to head into all the activity of the fall. So I'm thrilled you are here for the Summer 25 Simplify series. As part of that series, we're going to kick off with a guest that I so enjoyed because, I've launched into decluttering and simplifying before by going and buying more and more containers. Can you relate? And she made me really think about, okay, wait a minute. What about getting my heart right first? What about making sure that my perspective on stuff and clutter and all the things is in the right perspective? And so that's why I want you to take a listen about how to simplify your life with Julie Ubbenga. Julia, I really appreciate you taking the time. And I'm going to say it one more time because I'm just so proud of myself. Julie Ubbenga. All right. I feel really proud today. Thank you so much. Okay. So Julia, I was so excited when I saw your inquiry email from your publicist come across my desk like, hey, do you think that this might be a great guest for your podcast? And I was like, 1,000%. And not just for the podcast, but for me, because this is something that, like I said, I feel like I've grappled with through every season and complexion of my mothering career, being married. I mean, honestly, Julia, even back to the dorm room, just trying to figure out, what do I do with this stuff? Where does this all go? What do I need? What do I not need? All of the rest. I want to hear about your path to really honing in on and becoming an expert in the topic of decluttering, in stuff, in minimalism, all of it. I want to hear the backstory.
Of course. So, like you said, I'm Julie Ubbenga. And so I'm the mom of 5 kids, ages 11, 7, 4, 2, and 2 months. And I'm the creator of the blog, Rich in What Matters, where I've documented our family's journey into minimalism over the past 6 years. And I'm the author of the new book, Declutter Your Heart and Your Home, How a Minimalist Life Yields Maximum Joy. So I haven't always been a minimalist, pretty far from it, actually. I grew up close to my grandma, and my grandma, she loved to shop. She would shop whether she needed something or not, whether she had the money or not. It was her love language to give people things. So when I spent time with her, we would go shopping. And I soon learned that shopping was fun. It was a way to feel good. It was a way not to feel bad, to cover up hard feelings. And I carried this mindset into my 20s. I started making money. I started spending money. And pretty soon, I had a whole bunch of stuff and $40,000 worth of credit card debt. So when I thought about the debt, I felt bad. But when I felt bad, I'd go buy something new because that's what I thought would make me feel good and make me feel happy. So this cycle, it really continued until our second daughter was born. I was working outside the home as a speech language pathologist at the time, but I'd always wanted to stay home with our kids. That was my dream. My husband got a promotion. I could stay home. I was so excited. But I had this really idyllic vision of what stay-at-home mom life would be like. I thought we'd be baking cookies, giggling over tea parties. So in my mind, it was just going to be great. But a couple weeks into the stay-at-home mom gig, I wouldn't even called myself a stay-at-home mom. I would say a full-time stuff manager would have been a better title because that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for things, cleaning things, picking things up, tripping over things I hadn't yet picked up. It was all consuming. I was exhausted. I was distracted. Like I was there, but I wasn't really there. Couldn't really focus on the people around me. I was just stressed and overwhelmed. And so a couple months into living this way, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. And I have this memory of this morning where I was up in the recliner in the nursery feeding the baby. I was talking to God. Really, I was pleading with God. I was like, God, what is going on here? This is not what I signed up for. Something has to change. And I was reading the Bible, and a couple of verses out of Luke chapter 12, they jumped off the page at me. And they said, your life does not consist of possessions. Be rich in what matters. And so I paused there and I asked myself, was I rich in what mattered? And the answer was no, I wasn't rich in relationships or time for prayer, time for a hobby that I loved. Absolutely not. And so that planted the seed that something in my life around the area of possessions needed to change, but I didn't know what. I didn't know where to go from there. Then that same week, I had a therapy appointment. And at the end of the session, just as I was leaving, the therapist said, Julia, have you ever heard of minimalism? And I said, oh, you mean houses with white walls and next to nothing in them?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, there's more to it than that. Look into it. I think you might be interested. So I was curious. I did a Google search right there in the car after the session and realized there's a lot of resources about minimalism. So I started reading the books and the blogs and listening to the podcasts. And this idea that I didn't need all this stuff to be happy. And in fact, I'd be a whole lot happier with less of it, because then I would have more time and more energy to focus on who and what mattered. It was a mindset shift that was life-changing. And it finally gave me a vision of how to get out of this postpartum depression tunnel that I felt like I was stuck in. So I went all in on minimalism, and we donated 75% of our stuff over the course of the first year. I started a blog at the time. I called it Rich in What Matters, based on the Bible verse that spoke to me. And yeah, we downsized for a little bit, got out of our debt, built a small home ourselves. And we've been living this way now as a minimalist family for 6 years. And now there's 7 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you define minimalism? Because Julia, I see a lot of different definitions. Like you said, oh, okay, so just bare bones, a lawn chair over in the corner kind of thing. How do you define it for what works for your family?
There's definitely misconceptions about minimalism. You think white walls, somebody who only wears black, somebody who has a modern house, doesn't have kids because they don't want their house to be messed up. That's not it. That's not it at all. Minimalism it's a tool. It's a tool to live your life with intention. I would define it as intentionally making space for the things that matter by letting go of the things that don't. And that applies to more than your stuff. It applies to your possessions, your thought patterns, your calendar commitments. It's about owning the right amount of stuff, not too much, not too little, so that your focus can remain on what truly matters. And so that's going to look different based on your season of life, based on maybe how many kids you have or what your job is. And so minimalism really is just removing the distractions, the commitments, and the possessions that are weighing you down so that you can really fully embrace the things that bring you joy.
It sounds to me like a core piece of understanding a minimalist approach as a tool is really the art of knowing how to say no across many sectors, not just your possessions, but also with your time and those kinds of things. And yet I have to confess, Julia, I came into motherhood in a season in which it was so important to say yes to everything. Like you wanted to make sure you could network in all the ways. You wanted to make sure that your kids had X, Y, and Z. You wanted to make sure that you had the house that was big enough for epic hospitality and all of the things. Saying yes was really the value. So how do we unwire that? Because some of that, honestly, Julia, got twisted into, well, to be a good host, to be a good steward of the things you've been blessed with, to live in abundance in many ways, and to be very active and all of these things. It all kind of can get tangled up in ways that you don't even realize. So how do we begin to understand that art of saying no while still wanting to be open for God's interruptions, still wanting to have enough that we can share and be generous? Like, how does all that work?
Yeah, I think that you definitely need to discern the things you say yes to, whether it's a calendar commitment or something that you allow into your home. It helped me to realize that anytime I said yes to something, I was saying no to something else. So if I was saying yes to another fundraiser that I was going to head at the school, that meant I was saying no to more time at home with my kids. And if I was saying yes to more stuff in my home, I was going to be spending more time cleaning it and maintaining it. And so then I was saying no again to the things that mattered more to me than my stuff. So I think we need to really realize what it is that God has put on our hearts to be the most important thing in our lives during this season. And then we say no to the things that aren't that. We identify the essential and we eliminate the rest. And we do it with God.
I think that I have often confused, I think I've talked about this in a previous podcast episode, but if not, I think it's worth saying again, even if I have. I think I often confused I wanted to be very organized. I thought that being organized would trump having too much stuff in my house, if that makes sense. I didn't see it as having too much stuff. I thought I didn't have it organized well enough. And I have been on epic adventures before, Julia, of getting all the matching crates with the label maker and getting all the Barbie shoes matched and checking all the puzzle pieces of 47 different puzzles, like all the things, thinking that somehow in that diligence, I was going to create more room in a finite square footage of a house. So do you find that with your readers and with your community that you've developed, that this is a common misconception that maybe there's a way to organize ourselves out of, really at the end of the day, what's too much stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the line, you don't need any more bins, you just need less stuff. Mm-hmm. And I do think that people think that if they have the right organizational system, then the house will feel under control. And personally, myself, I'm not that organized. And it helps me just because I have not a lot of stuff. Everything can have a home and I can maintain order really easily. Whereas if I had a lot of stuff and I had a lot of organizational systems, then I've just got more on my mind that I have to keep track of and that I have to make sure the kids are putting all the shoes back right in the little, spot that they're supposed to. But they have, 8 pairs of shoes. And so this is really hard for us to do because we're constantly going back and forth, battling, you've got to do this, put these here. And it's just less stuff to manage mentally and less stuff in your home. And since I brought up kids, your kids really they will learn that kids like to know where things go. And so when the amount matches their ability levels, they will help out. They will help put their shoes in the bin if they have 1 pair. But if they have 8 and you're trying to organize it all, it's going to be a battle for you and them.
I like that you bring up the personality and development styles of where your kids are in the moment in terms of your expectations. There were many times in my mothering with all these little kids that I felt like I'm failing. I can't get them to do X, Y, Z. And I can look back now and realize, particularly now that several of my kids are adults and have launched, and I have a window into seeing how they organize their lives today, that I had kids who could and were going to be diligent about several number of things. And I had kids for whom that was very overwhelming. And to not, it's frustrating to me now to look back and go, if I had simplified things a bit more, that child might have felt more success with being part of the family, being part of the chore cycle, all of that. But as it was, I was consistently overwhelming them because of all the things. The other place that I think I have fallen into challenges before, and I think this has to do with personality style too, is sentimentality. I moved a lot as a kid, and the things that you got to bring with you were the things that felt more permanent, that really brought a sense of security because everything else was changing. So, how do we grapple with sentimentality? I mean, I have kept, and it's been diligently and lovingly prepped, but for each of my 8 kids, they each have a beautiful large box that I created of baby clothes and shoes and, all kinds of different things, belly button clamps that my kids were like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, well, I mean, so how do we work with our own sentimentality without getting overwhelmed and owned by the stuff that's supposed to be bringing happy memories? How did you parse that out? Because that's a tough one for me.
That's a tough one for everyone. Sentimental items are what decluttering experts would say to declutter last, because they are the most challenging for us to let go of. We think that our memories are housed in our stuff. And they're things that, like you said, the belly button clamp, like to most people, that would be junk. Yeah. But to you, it holds a real sentimental meaning. It holds value. And so these are things that they don't really have a monetary value, but it's more, they pull at our heart and we don't want to let go of them because we think our memory is tied to our stuff. But our memory, all of our memories are within us. They're not within our stuff. And I think that when we realize that, it can become easier to let go of those things. I think that there's a lot of value to holding on to sentimental things that we love, but we don't want to hold on to it all. If we have 18 boxes of sentimental stuff in our basement or our garage, we're not getting any value out of them. We're not getting the emotional value out of them. If we can hold on to less, then we can actually interact with those items. We can display them. What I've done is I've got one basket that I keep in the top of my closet, and that's my sentimental items basket. I've kept just my favorites. And that way I can pull that down and I can show those things to our kids. They can see my grandmother's slanted handwriting on a note that she wrote me. They can see the little wooden camel that I bought when I was in Egypt along the Nile. And I can tell those stories and those things come to life and I can share them with my kids. Whereas if they were boxed away in the basement, they would never know that. And I wouldn't be able to enjoy them either. So I think there's a lot of value in just keeping your favorites. When you're decluttering them, you can take pictures of the stuff that isn't your absolute favorite. You can put that on your phone. You can have a sentimental items photo album, and you can look through those anytime. Same memory, but a lot less stuff. And one tool I love, like a practical tip on decluttering sentimental items, it's called the spontaneous combustion question. It's by the minimalists. Maybe you've heard of them before.
Yes.
Yeah. But they say, hold the item in your hand and ask yourself, what would I do if this item spontaneously combusted? How would I feel? Would I feel good? Then you want to let that item go. If you would feel devastated, then that's something you probably want to keep. If you'd feel just kind of in the middle, you could take a picture of that item and then let it go. So that helped me a lot as I was holding each item, deciding what to do with it and realizing, okay, this is my favorite and this really isn't.
And I love too, as I was looking at your writing and the different things you offer, the different tools, I've done exactly what I always do in this conversation with you. I've jumped immediately to basically the metaphorical idea of bins and labels. But I want to back up because you really talk about getting your heart right as you begin, getting your thoughts, your heart, all of it right as you head into decluttering. Now, I see other people who say, no, we're going to jump right into action. We're going to grab a bag and we're going to pick up all the trash. Like we're going to do the thing that's easiest to start with. But you really prescribe to a pause and to getting yourself in the right headspace. So what does that entail and why do you start there?
That's a great question. I think you need to start there because what I see happening is you can declutter your home and it can give you a dopamine rush similar to buying things. And so you can get caught up in this cycle of decluttering, and then maybe you're still dealing with comparison in your heart and you see what your neighbor has, and so you buy it all back again and you're never really making any progress. Your house is still cluttered. And so when you declutter your heart first, you're going to have a better chance that you're going to have lasting change in your home. And I had to do this when I decluttered. And what really helped me was realizing that I needed to view our possessions differently. I needed to detach from our possessions. And I looked to the Bible to look at this because I had read, like Paul says to Timothy, that we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing out of it. And I'd read that. So in my head, I knew that possessions weren't the most important thing in my life. But my heart, like I said, was still really attached to them. I'd purchased them with hard-earned money. I'd found some amazing deals. I'd taken care of them. And so I felt like they were part of me, and I didn't really know how to let go of them. But eventually I realized that my possessions, I was going to need to detach from them. And when I looked at scripture, there was no blanket statement that said every single person who follows Jesus has to give away a bunch of stuff. You see the rich young man, he's asked to. We don't know if he actually did or not. Simon Peter, Andrew, James, and John, they did give away their stuff to follow Jesus. But then we see Lydia in the book of Acts, and when she became a believer, she didn't let go of her stuff, but she used it to make her home the first European church. And I was thinking about this, and I realized that the question isn't, how do I give everything away? But rather, how do I follow Jesus with everything? And I realized that I was going to have to give him access to everything, not just what I would declutter, but also what I would keep, because it had always been his. It always was. And so I realized that the things of the world, they may be good and they may be beautiful, but the truly good and the truly beautiful, they belong to a higher world. And so we can sense this goodness and this beauty in worldly things, but none of them last. So I felt this shift in my heart. I started viewing my possessions as transient things, more like fireworks or bubbles or ocean waves, something that you observe in the moment and then you let them go. And so my faith finally allowed me to realize that just none of it had ever been mine in the first place. And this shift, this heart level shift, allowed me then to stop the cycle of always needing more and more.
How do you align this with people who have a real creative streak? And what I mean by that is this. I have friends who part of the way they express themselves is they're really fantastic with fashion or accessories, or it's part of their personality and how they really explain who they are in some ways to the world. I have other friends who their homes are always just so beautifully appointed, and they're on top of some of the latest trends and these kinds of things, not necessarily from a materialistic standpoint, but because they have such an artistic eye, and they really are trying to create spaces in which we have friends in our small group who every single one of them, it feels like every couple is just so amazing at creating these environments that then really foster beautiful conversation and a certain tone and that kind of thing. And yet it would be easy for someone to stand on the outside and go, oh, they think they have to have the latest XYZ, and they just redid that house 5 years ago and now they've redone it again. So how do you align that heart posture of keeping an open hand with things, while at the same time not saying that you can't have expressions of your personality or who you are or things you're interested in that might actually involve a chunk of material goods? How do you get all that organized in your mind?
Yeah, I think that we need to realize that material things aren't bad at all. We are stewards of our stuff. And if we have different callings, and if hospitality is one of them, and we feel called to make our space beautiful, I think a beautiful space can help us raise our mind to God. I think it's all the way you view your stuff, and the intention behind it. So you know if you're buying it just because you want to have a bigger TV when the neighbors come over, or if you want to one-up them, that. And so I think it's all knowing just yourself what your purpose is for what you purchase, and take it to prayer. Take it to prayer too.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You've said that oftentimes our homes, and I'm assuming by that we also mean the state of our drawers and the state of our closets and the state of the basement and all of the things, can be a reflection of really what's going on internally for us. How do you see that? Because sometimes I go into a home that is perfectly organized, and yet that owner is so consumed, if you will, by trying to create perfection that even though this can look very peaceful and very together, it's not always as indicative. But I certainly see the state too, where you go in and somebody's inner life is absolutely reflected in what's happening in their house, and their house is total chaos. So talk to me a little bit more about that concept and how you see that play out.
Order ultimately isn't about our stuff. It's about putting God first. And I had to realize this when you mentioned people who are wanting things to look just right. I did get caught up a little bit in Instagram and Pinterest. I'm like, okay, this is what a minimalist house has to look like, and I need to keep it clean. If somebody's going to come over, it has to look just right. And I realized I was still putting stuff before God, still. And so I realized that order really wasn't about the stuff at all. It was about putting him first, and that really helps. But I do believe that the state of our home can often reflect the state of our souls. And so the book is divided into 3 sections, and it parallels a journey through an outer and an inner home. The first section is laying the foundation and decluttering the soul. So there's always an outer home and an inner home component to each section in each chapter. Then you journey on up through the home into section 2, and you get to the main floor. So decluttering the main floor and the heart. An example of a chapter in this section would be decluttering your wardrobe and letting go of comparison. And then as you continue your journey through the home, part 3, you get to decluttering the upstairs and the mind. And that would be like decluttering sentimental items or letting go of fear. That's a chapter in that section. So the book parallels throughout it, this inner and this outer journey, because what I realized as I was letting go of unneeded physical items, I was actually curating 2 homes, an outer home and an inner home. And the first housed my possessions, but the second, the home of my soul, housed God. And we know that God has created a home within every human being. 1 Corinthians 6:19, Paul says our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. So he's designed to live within us. But we have to consider, what does our inner home look like? What does that space look like? Is there space for him there? If he was knocking at the door and wanted to come in, could he actually open the door? Or is it just full of boxes of clutter like worry and fear and reactivity? And if he did get inside, would he have space to move freely? Or would the Holy Spirit just be crammed in a corner, unable to move? And we need the Holy Spirit to have space in our inner homes to be able to move so we can feel his promptings throughout the day. We're designed to be united with him, close to him. He wants to be with us. To quote Augustine, he wants to be closer to us than we are to ourselves. And so it's important to consider the state of our inner home, and your external environment can serve as a lens to that. And I think it's worth then reflecting on this, but not in a shoulding way. There's nothing beneficial in that, but more in like a curious, observing way. And you can ask, what is my home reflecting back to me? Is it chaos and distraction? Is it peace and calm? And are those accurate descriptors of my inner home as well?
I think too, one of the things that I'm seeing, I'm doing a lot of speaking recently on marriage, on preparing for marriage, those kinds of things. And one of the topics that comes up again and again and again is women really becoming frustrated with the mental load of running a home. And statistically, whether women are working inside the home or outside the home, they still are statistically the ones doing a majority of that work. And I realize that in many ways, by continuing to keep a whole bunch of stuff, I don't have the answers for how to fix all of those things and what husbands should be doing and what wives should be doing and on and on and on. I don't have all the encompassing solution for it. But I do know one place that I really shot myself in the foot over and over again was having so much stuff and trying to be responsible and a good steward over all of it, that it was always going to keep division of labor as a major problem, because the curation of trying to keep up with all these collections was naturally going to mean that it was going to be tough to take care of all of it. How do you see a minimalistic approach, an approach in really thinking about the inner life and the outer life, Do you think that it can help resolve some of those places? Because the reality is our houses are bigger than they've ever been. Our wardrobes are bigger than they've ever been. Kids have more toys than they've ever had. Like we have modern conveniences like vacuum cleaners and washing machines. But if we have 10x, 50x, 100x the amount of possessions in our homes, it's no wonder that we're spending more time than ever cleaning and caring for all of it. So how does this approach, do you think, nurture the marriage relationship?
We do have more things in our home than ever. Like you said, the average home has over 300,000 items in it now.
Wow.
Yeah. But we only use 20% of our stuff on a regular basis. So there's a lot of it that's unused. Like you said, housing sizes have doubled in the last 50 years. But I think there is this underlying desire still for women to take care of their homes, even though we've got huge homes filled with more stuff than ever. And I think that can take a strain actually on the marriage relationship. In my experience, it does, because you've got all this stuff, this huge house, and you don't have capacity for that. You weren't made to do that much. And when we're able to see people around us who maybe our husband worked a long, hard day and he comes home and he just needs to relax, but there's all this stuff and you see people who could help you out, and then you get stressed. Well, you're stressed anyway. And then you see people, you're like, why aren't you helping me?
Right.
And I think we can all relate to that. And when we have less stuff, then we can operate within our capacity, and we can ask for help, set those expectations where maybe your husband can do the laundry. My husband does the laundry, for example, and that's the one thing he does, and that helps me out so much. And it's manageable for him. He can work a full day and he can come home, and folding clothes is actually kind of relaxing for him. And so I think, again, when there's not an overwhelming amount of stuff, it's not overwhelming to help out and to divide up the chores. I think that everyone who lives in a home takes care of the home. That's our expectation. And you can set that expectation when you have fewer items in your home.
Well, Julia, I have loved this conversation. I think it's so helpful, a really unique perspective on how to begin to deal with our stuff and start dealing with it first in our perceptions and understanding of our stuff. I'm so excited for you for the new book. It's called Declutter Your Heart and Your Home. And Julia, I know that we want the listener to go check out Rich in What Matters online. Where can they get the book? Where can they find you online? All of those great things.
The book can be found anywhere books are sold. My blog is richinwhatmatters.com. And then I'm also on Instagram at richinwhatmatters, and you can find me there.
All right. Well, Julia, thank you so much. You certainly have given me inspiration for going to tackle my garage, because if you saw my garage, you would think, you might need to come see me down here in Austin. I need some professional help. So thank you so much for being with me today.
You're welcome. I would love to come see you down in Austin. It's snowing here in Kansas City. So yeah.
Come on down, girl. It's warm.
Thanks, Julie. It's been fun.
Friend, thank you so much for being part of our Summer 25 Simplify series, an entire series built on helping you find more peace and simplicity in these summer months so that you feel more equipped, more rested, more ready to go when the fall comes at us, because you know it's coming at us fast. And I want you to check out AllMomDoes, allmomdoes.com on the socials, all the places. You're going to find a community of women who are looking for the same things as you, a stronger relationship with God, an ability to find greater peace. I know that you're going to find great friendships there. Would you do this favor for me? Wherever you found this podcast episode, if it's spoken to you, would you grab the link and send it to a friend? That is one of the best things you can do as a thank you to this incredible production team we have, all the people involved who have such a heart to bring you the kind of information and inspiration that is exactly what you need for your life. It just means the world to us when you share the podcast. And I'll see you next time as we continue our Summer 25 Simplify series.
Thanks for listening. We just wanted to take a minute to let you know that just like you and your family, Purposely is also part of a family, the Krista Family of Ministries. Krista helps kids and teens learn and grow in their faith at King Schools and Miracle Ranch Camp. And Krista shares Jesus with people in the poorest, most remote places through World Concern. Krista Senior Living is a community of love and care, and Krista Media is a place of hope on the radio. God is changing lives through these 5 ministries, and Krista is on mission to share the good news of Jesus. To learn more, visit Krista.org.